Hi, welcome to the Refugee Welcome Collective Lunch and Learn series. In these sessions, we aim to bring interesting and timely information to you, supporters of refugees. Whether you're a volunteer, a community sponsor, resettlement agency staff, a local advocate, or just someone who's interested in learning more, we hope that you enjoy today's session, Weatherization, working with landlords and tenants to weatherize and save money. Refugee Welcome Collective collaborates with partners to provide in-depth training programs, weekly learning sessions, resources, and on-demand technical assistance for sponsors, practitioners at resettlement agencies, refugees paired with sponsors, community and institutional partners, and others to support quality community sponsorship programs across the United States. On to the housekeeping slide, please. As a reminder for everyone joining the call today, there's a control panel in your upper right-hand corner that will allow you to submit questions through the questions box. Please use the questions box, not the chat for that, please. There will be ample time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. Everyone on today's webinar is automatically muted. However, if you have any tech issues, please raise your hand through the control panel or submit a question in the questions box so we can try to assist you. Additionally, the presentation, any resources, and a recording will be sent to everyone following today's webinar. And this brings us to our presenter for today. Our presenter is Lynette Pearl. Anyone who is a regular of our Lunch and Learn has seen Lynette speak before, but Lynette is a Senior Associate of Housing for Refugee Housing Solutions. Lynette, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Derek, for having me again. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So the biggest misconception about weatherization is that this energy efficient process is limited to only those who live in or own homes. But fortunately, renting does not limit a tenant's ability to control the energy used in a rental property, regardless if it's a home or an apartment. So in this webinar, if you are a sponsor or volunteer or a resettlement practitioner, you will learn practical ways to educate newcomers on how to lower their utilities through weatherproofing. Next slide. Next slide. So before I go into the webinar presentation, I just want to give a brief overview of Refugee Housing Solutions and our services. Next slide. So Refugee Housing Solutions, it was created to bring housing experts, property owners, key stakeholders, and those working in the refugee settlement space together to discuss best practices and innovative solutions that would increase housing opportunities for newcomers. We are a project of Church World Service and funded by the Bureau of Refugees and Migration, known as PRM. And with this funding, we are able to provide resources and training such as this and one-on-one technical support to the 10 resettlement agencies and the 280 affiliates throughout the United States. So we also provide services and support to landlords, housing providers, and sponsors such as yourself and volunteers. Since collaboration and partnerships are vital to address this housing crisis, we have initiated a national working group and a regional community of practice. And the National Working Group and Regional Community of Practice provides stakeholders an opportunity to practice and network together. So that can also include volunteers and also sponsors as well. So please feel free to join one of our national working groups or our community of practice in order to network with your colleagues. Next slide. So the National Housing Working Group, it does meet every Friday of the month with Regional Community of Practice meeting quarterly. So go to our Get Involved section to express an interest on the National Housing Working Group and register for Region's quarterly meeting. Next slide. I do encourage you after this presentation to go to our website to see what is available, resources that are available, and also to see that if you need technical assistance, because yes, we do cater to landlords, property managers, resettlement practitioners. We do also provide TA to sponsors and volunteers. Next slide. And as you can see, there is our actual TA, refugeehousings.org. You can email us directly if you don't want to book a session. And what we do cover in TA, the next slide, please. We do provide understanding in housing crisis. This is just a little bit of what we provide during the TA. However, if there's some other issues and concerns you have, we can address that during a TA session. And the next slide, Grace. It's so easy to book a TA session with us. You can simply go to our website. We do have virtual hours on Mondays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Wednesday 9:30 a.m. to 7, with 20 minutes allocated for each appointment. So you can go to our system and you can book an appointment. If you feel that even after this presentation you have additional questions, feel free to email me or book a session where we can talk about what happened in the training if you have additional questions. Next slide. And here are some of our upcoming trainings, Innovative Solutions for Refugees to Understand the Landlord's World. We do have a virtual RHS virtual open house where it is going to talk a little about more in depth what we do, but also opening it up to property managers and housing providers to answer their questions when it comes to the resettlement process, and also the benefits of renting to newcomers. Next slide. So let's go ahead and get into our presentation while we're here, okay? Next slide. So what is weatherization? Weatherization is also called weatherproofing or winterizing. It's protecting a home's interior from outside elements like moisture, cold air in winter, but humid air in summer, and even sun, snow, and ice damage. So when you think of how it works, consider it as a layer of protection around a home or an apartment that makes it safer and more comfortable regardless of the season. So why is this so important? Health is why it's important. It's one of the essential non-energy benefits of weatherization is health. So proper weatherproofing can improve the air quality in the home. When indoor ventilation and air quality are addressed, air allergens such as pests, mold, and dust mites can be negated, which helps populations with pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, emphysema, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease known as COPD. So when homes or apartments are too cold in the winter or too hot in the summer, a resident with a pre-existing medical condition can be triggered, or a resident can develop an illness. Everybody benefits from weatherization, but populations sensitive to extreme temperatures, such as elderly, pregnant women, and those with disabilities and children would benefit even more. So the other health benefits for weatherized home include the reduction of fatigue, anxiety, stress, which improves sleep, and fewer bad health days, which result in fewer work days. Of course, you don't want the kiddos to miss school, so missing school decreases, and emergency room visits and hospitalizations. So as you can see, there's great benefits to weatherization outside of financial. Weatherization also reduces energy burdens for families and increases energy equity while creating employment for others. So there is a big demand for employment when it comes to energy efficient jobs. So that if you're interested in a trade, or if you have a newcomer who does have a trade, that might be a field they could be interested in entering into, is for employment. Next slide. So we're going to talk about summer, weatherization during the summer. Usually when people think of weatherization, winter usually comes to mind. And again, weatherization is a systematic process of home energy upgrades and practices designed to keep a home or apartment comfortable and energy efficient through every season. Let me repeat that, every season. So in this portion of the webinar, I'm going to present some tips on keeping a home or an apartment cool and energy efficient during the summer months. So we're going to talk about the use of blackout curtains. Blackout curtains, they do have a dual purpose. During winter, they can trap heat, but keep light out during the summer. So keeping also blinds closed on hot days will reduce the room's temperature when the outside temperature is hotter. So closing blinds early in the day before the sun comes out reduces the amount of heat that enters the home or the apartment. Insulated electric outlets. So installing switch and outlet insulating sealers is the easiest and most cost-effective weatherization project. By simply installing sealers on light switches, electrical outlets. A resident can reduce cold drafts during the winter, but keep the cool air from escaping in the summer. Insulation should be done with windows as well. Most people think of insulation as something for keeping the heat in during the winter, but the right techniques, you can keep the living space cool during the summer as well. So a tenant can insulate windows by applying window film and window strips. I want to back that up a little bit because when we talk about window film, we're talking about putting plastics on windows. That's the most common thing to use. Again, it has to be done and secured properly. However, if you have younger children in the home, I would not suggest using that because you don't want to risk them choking on the plastic or suffocating. So just FYI, that's something that I would not recommend for a household that have children under the age of, I would say 8 to be on the safe side. But usually they say 5, but 8 because you never know when they're a tad bit older, they still are curious about that and you don't want that situation. So use a dehumidifier. The benefits of dehumidifier during the summer months is that it reduces the air moisture and improves the home's air quality and can eliminate potential allergens like mold and mildew. Inhaling damp, excessive indoor air and humidity can trigger pre-existing conditions such as asthma, and it also can attract pests, encourage the growth of mold. So you have to be very careful during the summer months because mold will grow during summer. FYI, if a dehumidifier has a top-mounted air discharge, it can be placed against a wall, but if the discharge is on the side of the unit, it should be operated away from walls and furniture so it can freely circulate it. Also, if you have some questions, you can go to energystar.gov to learn more about dehumidifiers and the size needed for a specific square of space in feet of the room. So if you want to be more details and make sure it's effective, energystar.gov really breaks down what size of a dehumidifier you would need based on the square feet of the room. The use of fans. Ceiling fans are the most versatile home appliance regardless of the season. A ceiling fan can provide cool, warm air, which is done simply by changing the airflow direction. So during the summer, the ceiling fan should go in a counterclockwise direction. So I'm going to say counterclockwise direction. So when it goes in that direction, it helps create a downdraft, which creates a direct cooling breeze. So during the winter, it's slightly different. So during the winter, the fan direction needs to be clockwise to create an updraft and circulate warm air around the room. To save energy, ceiling fans should be turned off when the room is empty. Fans are for cooling. My mom would say this: fans are for cooling people off and not rooms. Okay, so if no one is in the room, to save energy, turn the fan off. If there's a fan in the bathroom, it should also be used to remove heat and humidity after showering or bathing. Also, if a kitchen exhaust fan can be used after cooking to assist with pulling hot air and moisture out of the home or apartment. We're going to talk a little bit about light bulbs, the swipe. Turning off the lights when not in use. Swiping out incandescent bulbs with LEDs not only saves energy but heat as well. LEDs not only use significantly less energy than other types of bulbs, but in many cases provide a better quality of light. Now, with LED bulbs, they are a little bit pricey, but the good thing is, but there are some energy providers and community action agencies that that offer rebates and giveaways to low-income families if they cannot afford them. That's not everywhere. However, there are a majority of energy utilities that do give these things away for free to low-income families. You want to close doors on unused rooms. By closing doors to unused rooms during the hottest part of the day, the cool air can flow where it's needed. Sheets, I know that's like, what does sheets got to do with it? It has a lot to do with it. That helps during summer. One way to stay cool at night and minimize using an AC is to have the right type of sheets. Now, Fleece blankets and flannel should not be, it should be swiped out for cotton sheets. Cotton sheets, they are cooler, they're breathable, and can keep moisture away from the skin. So if it's July, you shouldn't be sleeping under flannel sheets, okay? Add live plants. If you got a green thumb, that's even better. Um, Live plants, they do add a natural way to enhance air quality and keep a home, an apartment cooler in the summer. It is by adding live plants, they can keep a house and apartment cool because they lose water during their transpiration, which cools the air around the plants, leaving it purified and fresh. Another benefit of plants also absorb carbon dioxide and it releases oxygen, which help remove toxins from the air. Plants are also a wonderful decor that helps with calmness and anxiety. So it does contribute to a positive mental health wellness. So that's what plants can do. Run the dishwasher and clothing washer and dryer at night if possible and hang laundry outside to dry. In order to save money in energy consumption during the summer, it is recommended that certain appliances should be run after peak hours. Peak hours, they do vary depending on where a newcomer lives and their energy provider. During the summer, some power companies, they do charge for day electricity use due to surges. I know my sister lives in LA and she said there's certain times I do not do anything because that's when the surges happen. To avoid surges, for example, it's best for a newcomer to use a full load dishwasher, washer or dryer early in the morning or late at night. Again, this depends on where you live at will determine that. Electric dryer and dishwasher, they are appliances that consume a lot of energy and generate a lot of heat as well. So if possible, air drying laundry and hand washing dishes should be an option. In addition, appliances during the day warms up the house and adds to sun heating it, causing the AC to overexert itself. So to save the AC usage and have a lower utility bill, chores, if possible, should be done later in the day. Cooking outside. Cooking and baking, it does heats up a home and it competes with the AC. So if there is an outdoor communal area with grills, suggest that a newcomer utilize this area during the cooler part of the day to prepare dinner or cook several meals in advance. If cooking outdoors is not an option, because a lot of people don't have that option of grills or communal area to cook, possibly suggest meals that cook quickly or can be prepared on an appliance that use little electricity and release less heat. And you can also designate a cool room. We used to have a cool room. We used to call it the blue room. You can determine which room should be a cool room by closing all internal doors during the day. And if the room that is the coolest during the heatest of the day, that should be designated as your cool day. And that could be an actual room you use to congregate when you get really hot while you're making sure all the other doors are closed, if possible, if you can do that. And some families don't have that option, but if you do try to designate a cool day. Next slide. Next slide. So we went ahead and talked about a few tips you can do during the summer. So let's talk about what you can do during the winter months. Insulate windows with plastic, as I spoke earlier. Insulation does keep heat in the home or apartment during winter. It adds that extra layer of protective plastic to the inside of the window, and it can prevent drafts. But again, however, plastic needs to be properly. I want to keep iterating this. It has to be properly installed and secure when it's used as insulation, especially if you have a household with children. I can't iterate that even more. Okay. If that's not an option for the household, again, apply window strips can be a better option for homes with smaller children. Be sure storm windows and doors are closed. Now, this is not for every case. Not every apartment or house have storm windows or doors. And if a tenant is unsure if they have those, they can ask the actual landlord or housing provider. If the home and apartment has storm windows and or doors, They should be closed. Closed storm windows and doors does provide additional insulation, which helps reduce energy costs. So just FYI, block drafts coming through window sills and below doors. Drafts from window sills and doors can be blocked with several options. With window sills, plastic, weather stripping, thermal curtains, and blinds. Um, this is something I learned from my mom. Nail polish can also be used to seal small gaps under the window frame. Again, you can use nail polish for small gaps. When using nail polish, ensure that it's clear, as the color is clear, so it's unacceptable, it's unnoticeable when it's dry. So again, with nail polish, it has to be a small gas, something you can repair without the landlord's assistance. Make sure the nail polish is clear because you don't want to damage or use any coloring to damage the unit. Door drafts can be blocked with foam tape to help with the seal, door sweeps, or a door draft stopper. That helps with that. Let the sun shine during the day. That helps as well. One of the easiest things to do in the winter is letting the sun do the heating. Keeping the blinds and curtains open throughout the day allows the natural sun to heat the home or apartment. And by closing them at the end of the day, it does trap the heat. So that is a good thing to use, is let the sunshine naturally warm up the house or apartment. Put rugs or wooden down on wooden floors. Since the insulated floors stop heat loss, rugs do increase the temperature of a space. Rugs and carpets are also significantly cozier than hardwood and tile flooring, so large area rugs offer high insulation and better heat loss reduction than smaller ones. So if possible, financially, if you can't afford larger rugs, I suggest that you recommend that your clients get larger rugs. Also, the warmth of rugs help keep your feet warm and dry. I know this is unusual about hanging carpets and other fabrics as wall decorations. Although walls don't transfer energy as easily as windows, they can still let out considerable amount of heat. So hanging carpet, fabric decorations, pictures, mirrors, tapestries, bookshelves, and other types of things on the wall can also act as an insulator. Again, using a dehumidifier, it helps keep humidity levels up during the winter and is good for the residents' health, and it benefits the air and furniture as well. It also keeps air temperature from feeling warmer than dry air, because dry air does not, it feels colder. So the thermostat can be turned down. Again, designate a warm room and let others be colder. So you want to have some of that uh, uh, heat transfer to one particular room. This could be especially helpful during emergencies that can happen during winter. So if you have a designated, well-isolated room, use that room just in case if there is an emergency or if there's a power outage. Another common thing you can do is wear extra layer of clothing and use extra blankets at bed at night. By layering with clothes and using extra blankets at night, a resident can stay warmer. When it comes to being warm on a winter night, the goal is to control the amount of warmth that can be trapped by clothes and blankets. So this means that the layer closest to the skin are the most important to consider when layering clothes and selecting blankets. So right now, probably your blankets, you need to, break out the fleece blankets for the winter months. One common thing people don't realize is check for blocking furniture. Ensure furniture or personal items are not blocking vents. A heating and cooling equipment is set up to accommodate a home and apartment specific square footage. So when an air vent is blocked by furniture, the same amount of air is still being pushed through in the ventilation system, but now with increased pressure because of limited opportunities for airflow, it forces the HVAC system to work harder. And it also shortens the lifespan and results in frozen air conditioning coils, what results is overheated furnaces, cracked heated exchangers, and leaks in duct systems. So with that being said, block vents not only limit the heat flow, but can cause severe damage to the unit, but also it can be a fire hazard, just FYI. One thing you should create, as always, not just having in your home, is having create an emergency kit, just in case again of a power outage. Emergency kit should be available. So what would you put in an emergency kit? The basic kit should include a gallon of water, non-perishable foods can last someone for several days, a battery-powered radio, a flashlight, and a first aid kit. If a newcomer has a member in the household, or if they rely on medical equipment that requires electricity, make sure that they register with their local power company and community action agency. So just in case, if they're listed with a medical condition and there's a power outage, they are being identified by the electrical company, and you can get services quicker for that household. Just FYI. So one thing is, a lot of people say, well, I don't have the resources, the money to create an emergency kit or what goes into it. The good thing is they need to contact their local American Red Cross. The American Red Cross usually will donate emergency preparedness kits and checklists to low-income families. Next slide. So when people rent, it's often difficult to know when where the landlord and where their responsibilities end and start. And so it's also common where it runs into weatherization. As the season changes, this question becomes more pressing. So I recommend when you're working with a newcomer, once they sign that lease, they need to be talking to their landlord about who's responsible for what specific weatherization task. Since weatherization is more intensive and should be, if it's more intensive, and it should be the responsibility of the landlord, landlord and tenant relationship. It is a partnership. So it's imperative that the resident work with the landlord to complete the weatherization process. So it's a partnership even during the weatherization process. So we're going to talk a little bit what is the landlord responsible for when it comes to the weatherization process. For example, if there's some things that a tenant is unsure of or feel uncomfortable, they should make sure they have that in the lease. It's written in the lease. So repairs in interior, large repairs and interior cracks, that falls under the landlord's responsibilities when it comes to weatherization. Sealing leak windows, even though a resident can do basic sealing, when I'm saying basic sealing, they can do that, but ultimately the responsibility is the responsibility of the landlord, and to have the windows winterized. That it runs under the landlord's responsibility. Insulated HVAC ducts, water heaters, water pipes with quality materials, that falls under the landlord. Residents can also protect the pipes from freezing by leaving the sink on a low drip. This will keep water moving through the pipes and greatly decrease the likelihood of frozen or pipes being burst. However, the major things falls under the landlord. If applicable, if there's a chimney or a fireplace, it is that landlord's responsibility to clean that chimney and get it ready for weatherization. And also, I recommend if there's a chimney or a fireplace, the landlord should be literally explaining how a fireplace works, just for safety purposes. Because sometimes a lot of people, that's the first time they ever use a fireplace. You just can't assume that a person knows how to use a fireplace, just FYI. To make sure the furnace filters are replaced regularly. During the coldest months, furnace filters need to be replaced more frequently. The resident needs to check with the landlord to know if they are responsible for this task. I've seen some landlord make this task part of the tenant's responsibility. If the landlord does, it need to be outlined in the lease, and also the landlord need to provide the schedule for when it needs to be changed and provide training if this is part of the tenant's responsibility. But however, usually I've seen filter replacements is the landlord's responsibility. I rarely see a landlord put that on a tenant, but if it does, because you have that rare occasion it does happen, it needs to be in the lease so they know that's what they're responsible for, and also they need to provide the training on how to do it. Temperature control by installing programmable please forgive me. Thermostat in the home and apartment. The renter can save money on their heating and cooling bill by setting it while they are away or sleeping. I have seen some units, apartments where when the landlord is responsible for all the utilities, they do not have control over their own thermostat. So just FYI. Clean gutters. A landlord should clean the roof, gutters before winter hits, especially if you have a newcomer that is living in an actual house. A roof and gutters full of leaves or debris can result in basement flooding, foundation issues, and the breeding of pests and water damage that can affect the resident. So if you do have a newcomer that is living in a house, make sure that they get with their landlord to come up with time where they can clean the roof and the gutters before winter hits. Again, we're going to talk about replacing air filters. As with furnace filters, the landlord should replace those air filters. And if the landlord, again, requires a resident to do the replacement, a schedule and a training should be provided as well. That's no different. Next slide. So we're going to talk about just slightly, I'm going to go over some winter heating safety. First of all, I don't assume everybody knows everything. Do not use the oven as a space heater. I know it seems common, like you don't do that, but certain things people just don't understand. You shouldn't use an oven as a space heater or to heat a house or an apartment. A gas or electric oven or surface units should not be used for heating. A gas oven may go out and burn inefficiently, leading to carbon monoxide poisoning. So an electric oven is not designated to be a space heater or to heat up a unit or a house. Again, you have to be careful with using space heaters only as directly in the safety info. When working with a newcomer, if they do have space heaters, tell them do not use them at night because that can be an issue, a safety issue, and space heaters do catch on fire if they're too close to certain furniture, bedding. I would not recommend having a space heater on throughout the night. That's why at the night, layer up and have that warm room already ready for bedtime. Another thing that can be an issue I've seen is candles. Using candles safely. Candles should never be used as a heating source. They should never be left unattended or left burning while people are sleeping. Matter of fact, I do not recommend candles, especially if you have little ones in the house, because that's easy for them to be knocked over. Other ways newcomers can save money, cooking, boil water and cover pots. For gas stove tops, keep flames in the pot within the width of the pan. Preheat the oven only when necessary, and use the oven at a constant temperature. Other hot water use, if possible, if you have the option, you can bathe and shower. Bathing instead of showering is the best option because you can save more money when you bathe, when you shower. And then use clothes and dishwashers when it's at full capacity. Again, you don't want to, if it's the summer, you don't want to use it during a surge time period. One good thing you can recommend with newcomers is paying utilities and using monthly average budget plans. And they're probably like, what is that? So encourage clients to use a monthly average budget billing. With budget billing, a resident can pay a set monthly amount for utilities. So this service makes energy costs more predictable despite fluctuation in energy use as seasons change. So they at least can budget how much they're going to pay for the utilities when they're on that particular plan. With the budget billing, the utility company does review average use for the past 12 months. And if this information is not available, if they're just now renting up and they don't have that history, usually they do use a previous occupant usage as part of that as the monthly cost average. I don't recommend that sometimes. The reason why, because say, for example, if the last occupant was a large family, it's going to be slightly higher. And say if I'm a family of 2, I'm not going to want my average to be one of a family of 6. So you got to be a little bit careful about that when you use that option. Next slide. So we're going to go ahead and talk about weatherization assistance, which is very important. So I want to talk about utility and heating disconnection laws. We need to talk about this. So you're probably asking, what are state disconnection policies? Most states, they do have laws, rules, and regulations in place that determine when electric, gas, water, or utility company may disconnect a customer service. The rules and laws may prevent a shutoff of heat, power, or electricity during winter or summer. Now, I want to just iterate this. These laws, they do vary by state and were put into place to protect mostly the elderly, families with children, those with disabilities, and those with medical conditions. Some states will regulate if a utility company can turn off the heat in the cold winter months, or laws determine if energy company can turn off electricity or lights during the hot summer, among other scenarios. That's similar. What is a hot weather rule? We're going to talk about that one first. This is when the National Weather Service predicts that a temperature will rise above a certain degrees. And again, this varies by state. For example, I'm going to use me. I love picking on me. I live in Missouri. Based on Missouri state law, the law takes effect. Now, there's a time period when the law takes effect. It takes effect between June 1st and September 30th for the hot weather rule. Now, based on Missouri, the utility company is prohibited from disconnecting service if the National Weather Service local forecast between the times of 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. for the following 24-hour predicts that the temperature will rise above 95 degrees, or the heat index is predicted to rise above 105 degrees. Now, that is for the state of Missouri. Again, it varies from state to state. Now, every state has this as well. And similar, what is the cold weather rule? It's similar as the cold weather rule. So again, is when the National Weather Service predicts temperature will drop below a certain degree. For Missouri, the cold weather rule is effective from November 1st to March 31st. So again, check your state check your state rule to see when the period starts and the conditions. So again, for the state of Missouri, the disconnection of heat-related service is prohibited when the temperature is predicted to drop below 32 degrees during the following 24-hour period. Now, I want to say this is varies from state to state because right now I'm in Missouri, but I've lived in different states. I'm originally from Chicago. When I lived in Illinois, it was totally different. When I lived in Texas, totally different, was totally different conditions. Even the months were different. So make sure before you talk with a newcomer, if you have these rules in your state, know what the rules are and explain it to them. Now, I want to also talk about medical necessities like we talked about earlier for utilities. As I mentioned earlier, if you discover that a newcomer or someone in their household relies on electricity for medical equipment, they should register with the local power company and community energy program. If there is a documented medical condition, again, depending on the state rules, a utility provider must postpone the shutoff for up to 21 days if the shutoff will affect the medical condition. Some states, it extends longer. In Illinois, because it's colder, the extension is longer. Now let's talk about the landlord. So if the landlord is responsible for the utilities and it's in the lease, because that's how you'll know they're responsible for the utilities, because it's in your lease. If the landlord is responsible for the utilities and the shutoff happens, the resident can demand that the landlord pays that bill immediately. And if they say they're going to pay it, the resident has every legal right to confirm with the utility company that the actual bill has gotten paid. So if the landlord does not pay, there are two steps they can possibly take if there's a shutoff. They can do an emergency tenant reaction with the actual utility company, because they can say, look, I'm not responsible for the utilities, my landlord is. And usually utilities are going to be in the landlord's name if they're responsible. Or they can pay the bill if they want to pay the bill themselves. And if they do, they have every right to knock off that amount off their next rent. Again, the lease will outline what utilities that landlord is responsible for. So there are some reasons your utilities can be disconnected and you cannot do anything about it. For example, if you tamper with the meter, I would suggest not to do that because that can be dangerous. You can electrocute yourself in the process. Stealing services, having unsafe conditions, and fraudulent applying for services. So next slide. What we're going to do, we're going to see a brief video by Find Law, and what it's about is what to do if your utility company tries to cut off your service. Hopefully that short video was informative. Next slide. So if you do have a newcomer that is dealing with arrears, utility arrears, there is assistance out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk about the National Weatherization Assistance Program. It is sanctioned by the U.S. Department of Energy Weatherization, called WAP. Its primary purpose is to increase energy efficient for low-income households and to reduce financial burdens. So why is the National Weather Program so important? It's important because it helps keep communities vital and helps them revitalize themselves. And it helps people in apartments and houses to be livable and safer. Um, there are available assistance, and I just picked, again, each state and even each county is slightly different, but I picked the general ones. Um, Again, you could go to Low Income Housing Energy Assistance Program. And with this, Grace, if you want to hit that link, it can outline, it's a state map, and it outlines different territories and different organizations you can contact if you're trying to trigger services for a newcomer if they need their arrears paid for. Can you hit that link, Grace? Well, now let you open
If not, that's okay. We
it.
can
Yeah, that's
certainly,
okay. We can move on. I just wanted
we
to
can
show how.
include, yeah, we can include these links in a follow-up email to
Okay,
everyone.
cool. I just kind of wanted to navigate through it. And
Yeah.
also with it, if in doubt, contact your local community action agency. And again, that link is available for that. Oh, here we go. And as you can see, it has the United States, and you can kind of hit and see what resources are available in your area for energy assistance. The one popular website, and again, these links will be available, is I Need Help Paying Bills. And it does have links to organizations that help with utilities assistance. And also, one thing I like about I Need Help Paying Bills, not just that, if you need assistance with food pantries, any type of thing you can think of, this provides and breaks down all the different social services, and you can find out what's available in your area. What if in doubt, you can always call 211 in your area. Usually 211 is connected to United Way. and 211 will give you resources for weatherization programs. Okay, next slide, Grace. So again, each program is slightly different, but I want to kind of go over how you can generally apply for weatherization. Again, locate your weatherization agency or local program in your area. One of the things I want to say, even though community action agencies are known for weatherizations, you do have some nonprofits that do offer this service as well. The bigger ones, such as Salvation Army, Catholic Charities. Again, each affiliate is slightly different, but there's nothing wrong with you checking it. City and county municipalities, please forgive me, offer, some of them offer that service as well, but not all, because funding does go by quickly. Another thing you want to make sure when you're helping a newcomer, if they have some arrears, is determining their eligibility. Again, usually this service, weatherization, is for low-income households. I know sometimes you think it's first come, first serve. Yes, it is first come, first serve, but it's also the one client that has the highest need. So usually if you're low income, you have a disability, or you have children, you're going to bump up the list higher than someone who doesn't, just FYI. And if you have a question about your income, you can go to her website. That link is provided, where you can help a newcomer check their income based on the size of their family. Again, income limits are determined by where you live. So if you live in LA, the income limits are going to be totally different from someone who lives in Omaha, Nebraska. So you just want to make sure you check the income limits for what qualifies for the weatherization program in your area. The typical things they do ask for in an application, of course, legal identification. So working with newcomers, again, they're going to have slightly different documents than someone else. So their I-94, getting a letter from a resettlement agency, or getting support from you will help with that documentation piece. They will need their account billing information, and also income verification. Whatever support they're receiving from a resettlement agency, or if they're working, check stubs to prove that they're low income or that they qualify for the program. They'll require proof of all working adults in a household, and the lease, because they want to make sure whoever they're helping, assisting them with, that is a person that's living in actual property or units. So next slide, Grace, next slide. So this concludes today's webinar. Again, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is lpearl@cwsglobal.org. Or if you want to, again, get technical assistance, go to our website and book a session with us. And just check out what additional support and resources we have. So that's it for me, Derek. Hopefully this was helpful for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lynette. Really appreciate it. And we actually are bumping up against the end of our time. We certainly have a little bit of just a moment. If anyone in the audience has a question, I haven't seen anyone post anything yet, but if you are in the audience right now and you would, if you do have a question for Lynette, or something specific about weatherization or something like that, please feel free to put that into the questions tab. I'll just give it just a minute, just in case anyone has a question. I think, Lynette, you covered a lot today and a lot of great information. And for those interested, I know there are some links, and we'll include those links in the follow-up email and that kind of thing. Some great practical advice, as well as how to connect to other organizations and community organizations around you to be able to put these things into practice, and especially when it comes to emergencies and things like that, to be able to have a plan of action to be able to try to address those concerns. And so, yeah, I don't see anyone posting a question. That's absolutely fine. I do just want to say thank you to Lynette for being here today and for presenting. Thank you to everyone for attending today's RWC Lunch and Learn. You will all receive a follow-up email with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. Please feel free to share that. There is a survey here with a QR code. If you wouldn't mind filling that out for us, we always appreciate it. Just feedback on how we're doing, and if there are any particular topics that you would like to hear about or learn more about, or if you have any suggestions for any potential speakers, we always appreciate that kind of feedback, and you can do that there. Just wanted to say on behalf of Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Lynette. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.